I'm sorry that I can't be with you, but I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to address you this way with our modern technology. I understand you're all gathered to discuss the future and the issues of security and what our world is going to be like in the next 10, 15, 20, 25 years. And of course, it's very significant that this is right during the time of the 10th anniversary of the September 11 attacks that took place here in New York and in Washington and in Pennsylvania in the United States. To me, of course, and I believe this is the case, but your own personal opinion can always affect something like this. To me, the attacks of September 11 so far have been the most significant thing that happened in the 21st century, and they've had a big impact on what the 21st century is all about, because they clearly demonstrated in one very dramatic day the risk that we face in this world, the risk of terrorism, the risk of excessive ideology, and how that can unfortunately affect people and make them extremely violent. The attacks of September 11th were not isolated. The attacks coming from that form of terrorism, meaning Islamic extremist terrorism, had been going on since the 1960s through the 70s, 80s, 90s. There were hundreds of attacks in the United States, some of them in Europe, some of them in other parts of the world. There had been some recent attacks in the 1990s. The attack on the World Trade Center was not the first attack on the World Trade Center. There had been one in 1993 with an attempt to destroy the building that led to the loss of life and to people being imprisoned for a long period of time for bringing it about. So what September 11 really did was crystallize a form of terrorism that had been affecting the world very significantly for about 30 or 40 years without what I would consider a really unified response. Since September 11, there has been a much more unified response. The intelligence gathering that should have been taking place in intensity before September 11 has really improved. All the countries of the world, particularly the countries of the United States and Europe and Asia and Africa that are affected by this, cooperate much more together. Since September 11, there have been a lot of attacks that have been stopped because of the intelligence work done in Europe or in the United States or in Asia, Africa, and because of a cooperation that hadn't existed before that. And I believe that the world is much more aware of the dangers that come out of terrorism, particularly the form of terrorism that brought about the attack of September 11. For those of us in New York who lived through it, it'll be an experience that we will never forget. I think of it every single day. I think about my friends that I lost, and I think about the innocent people that died, and I think about the insanity that brought about the attack, and I think about the bravery and the strength of the people who responded to it, who saved more lives than maybe in any other relief and recovery effort that we've ever had in the United States. I think of the brave people who did the recovery effort afterwards for months and months and months and put their lives at risk, some of whom have suffered health consequences as a result of it. So for as many stories of evil and violence and terror that are attached to September 11, there are equal stories of bravery and caring and compassion and understanding, and makes it probably the most complex experience that I'll ever go through, the worst day and the best day. But I do think good things have happened as a result of it. I think an understanding of the terrorism that we're facing is one of those things, and understanding that even if the kind of terrorism we're facing can be described as Islamic extremist terrorism, it doesn't in any way describe the entire Islamic community. The Islamic religion, like all other religions, is a good and decent religion that guides most people in very, very good paths. Unfortunately, like every other religion that has seen people distorted and turn it into something that it isn't, there are people that have distorted and turned the Islamic religion into something that it isn't, and into a cause for their violent activities. And that is a situation that we're facing right now, and we're going to face it, for quite some time. The events of this year that are generally described as the Arab Spring, I think are very encouraging, because I think they show that in some of the countries that have been dominated by people who are oppressors, that the people in those countries want the same thing that you and I want. They want freedom. They want the opportunity to select the people who govern them. They want the ability to have control to a great extent over their own lives and over their own property and over the decisions that have to be made about their children. So I think what we see over the course of the last 6 or 7 months are things that talk to the universality of human beings, that even if there's a certain level of oppression taking place in these countries, it's not something that people want. It's something they would like to overcome. And we've seen that in Egypt. We see it going on now in Syria. I'm sure, and I know from personal experiences that I've had, that the same thing is true in Iran. I think the people of Iran would like to be free of the theocratic oppression that dominates Iran, and that is a large contributor to the difficulties that are going on in the Middle East. So there are very hopeful signs that you as young people can hopefully build on. It doesn't mean we're not going to go through a very difficult period of having to deal with this excessive terrorism. It's by no means over. The people who attacked on September 11 have attempted often since then to bring about attacks. By very strange coincidence, I not only lived through the attack of September 11, 2001 in New York, but I lived through the attack of July 7, 2005 in London. I just happened to be there as part of my legal work, law firm business. I happened to be there a half a block away from the Liverpool station the morning that the first of those 4 bombs went off in London, that was brought about again by Islamic extremist terrorists, and watch London go through, on a smaller scale, what New York went through, a few years earlier. So I'm very aware of the fact that these threats still exist, and my work now, a large part of it has to do with security, so I keep pretty current on it. So this is not something that we're finished with yet. It's not something that we've seen the last of, and unfortunately there are still people that are organizing around this attempt to, in their strange world, even though it's hard for us to believe this, their strange world of wanting to enforce their religion and their way of thinking on us, which is something that of course is unrealistic, but unfortunately not to them. So we have to be very aware of that threat. We have to have our governments cooperating very closely together. We have to share information with each other, because any one of our countries is subjected to the possibility of this kind of attack. And then at the same time, we have to be willing to work with the overwhelming majority of people who live, even in the countries where some of this terrorism is being fomented. The vast majority of people that are living in those countries have the same desires and the same outlook and the same goals for their lives that you and I have. And we have to continue to try to create stronger bonds with them. And I think that's something this new generation is very capable of doing, of understanding the complexity of human behavior, that because there are some people in a particular group that are very dangerous, very evil, really terrible and awful and dysfunctional, that doesn't mean the whole group is like that. All of this has manifested itself very differently during history. Almost every group is subjected to this kind of analysis, if not every group. At least that's the experience of my lifetime, where I've spent an awful lot of time investigating and prosecuting criminals and terrorists and people that are similar to criminals and terrorists. So I'm really glad that you're getting together and you're discussing, as young people, our future, because you are our future. I again wish that I could be with you, and I'm glad that I've had a chance to address you this way. And I wish you the very, very best, and all the best success in the future. Thank you, and God bless you.